marketing, being in this neighborhood. My building is beautiful, the office is beautiful. And so that visibility has been really helpful to growing.
Hello and welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Claire Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. Now, today's special guest is Dr. Claire Melancon, a facial and reconstructive surgeon offering her patients surgical as well as non-surgical solutions. So Dr. Melancon grew up and studied in Louisiana. She attended medical school at Louisiana State University, then entered an otolaryngology program at Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center in North Carolina, and then a fellowship with renowned facial plastic surgeon Russell Crydell in Houston, Texas. She is now in private practice with offices in Uptown New Orleans, as well as a second office in Mandalay, Louisiana. How long have you been in practice, by the way?
I've been in practice for 3.5 years now.
Oh, nice. Okay, so welcome to Beauty and the Biz. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be on this show. I've loved it for a long time into building the business side of my practice.
Oh, fantastic. So how did you end up in facial plastic surgery versus some other specialty?
So I think been asked this a lot, and I think obviously your interest and the things that you're good at kind of narrow that path down for you. But I was an artist in high school, and that's kind of how I made money there. Shocked everyone when I decided to go to medical school. But I think the enjoyment that I get out of working with my hands, and then the subjective side of plastic surgery, and then being in such a niche like facial plastics, I think is really what drew me ultimately to pursue cosmetic facial plastics.
And then did you go straight from fellowship to private practice?
I did. I went straight out the gate. So opened my practice.
How is that possible? Because at that point, you were in Houston with Dr. Crydell. I know him well. He runs a great practice. So did you think you got enough of the business and marketing side to then say, oh, I can do this on my own?
I wouldn't say I ever had that level of confidence starting out. I think I definitely had wonderful training, and then some wonderful mentors along the process who had seen kind of do it before me. That wasn't necessarily when I went into fellowship what I knew that I was going to do. I think as time went along, I kind of started realizing I really loved the creative side of owning a practice and watching that kind of play out in my fellowship director's practice. And then interviewing for jobs, there really was not a job that out there that I felt like would offer me the ability to really pursue what I was interested in, which was the cosmetic side of facial plastics. And so sort of like halfway through my fellowship years, when I kind of knew that I was going to make the jump into launching my practice, and from then on, it was kind of planning that while finishing fellowship.
So now you have to find a building. So a lot of people want to know, like, the nuts and bolts of how do you do it? Do you start with a building? Do you first go find a contractor? Then do you find a permit? Like, how do you do that? And who told you how to do it?
So I think we found really good realtor recommendations in the areas that we were looking. We were kind of torn between two cities at that time, both in Louisiana. We wanted to be closer to family. So that was sort of the impetus for trying to come back to Louisiana, and then started looking at commercial properties there. And ultimately, based on what was available and then kind of the overall scenery in New Orleans from a practice standpoint and patient population standpoint and future growth potential standpoint, is why we chose New Orleans. We obviously, time was short being in fellowship. So we basically had 2 trips to kind of pick a property. And so thankfully we had a really great realtor who sort of could envision what we were looking for. And I say we, because my husband was also integrally involved in that process in the beginning, obviously less so now, but so she was very helpful in kind of narrowing down the properties and making it very high yield for us. And ultimately, choosing that location is a huge decision. And I have no regrets about where I chose. I think the place where I chose has been absolutely wonderful from a practice growth standpoint. You always want more space in your office, but that's the plight of the 2 or 3 years in surgeon, I think.
So you went with a very upscale neighborhood. So you should tell us about that. And did you buy or lease, or how'd that work out?
I wasn't quite so adventurous to buy up front, so I kind of wanted to make sure, that this was the path that I was going to be on, kind of long term. And so we leased the space. I did have to build it out. It was completely dirt floors. It was a brand new building. It was about 2 years old. Beautiful on Magazine Street, uptown New Orleans by Audubon Park, kind of the highest end neighborhood in our city. So but also bordering Magazine Street, which is really hustle and bustle, kind of young and fun, and a lot of little small boutiques there. My building is shared with Starbucks and Club Pilates, which has been wonderful. From a passerby standpoint, and just overall kind of self care experience for patients. And so then we built out this office building. I guess we started breaking ground in February and finished, and got a little bit waylaid from a hurricane in the middle of the summer, of course, but finished in September. So, and it's beautiful. Absolutely loved designing this building. And so, yeah.
How challenging was it for the permits and the build out? And did it stay on schedule and stay on budget?
You know, um, so post-COVID era, nothing stays on budget, I don't think. So we did, it was definitely more expensive than we anticipated. I will say we were very pleased with our contractors. My brother-in-law was our architect, and he had a lot of relationships with those contractors. So I think our experience may be a little different than most, in that the timeline was very correct. We were totally on schedule until Hurricane Ida hit, and kind of the city shut down for 6 weeks. So that was something that was kind of inevitable. But in general, yes, we had a pretty good experience with that.
And
So
how helpful, if you've got some family who know what they're doing and you trust them, what
100%.
a great head start, because half of the surgeons have these, horror stories about
Right,
the
right.
contractor versus the architect versus who takes the blame for whatever. And it just goes on and on. So it went pretty well.
It
Yeah.
went great. Yes, yes,
Other
yes.
than the hurricane, of course.
Other than the hurricane, yes. That we couldn't get anyone to come in and install internet or phones for about 6 weeks. So that was kind of our big challenge there. So
That's why we have that bumper sticker. Happens, it's like, God, you never know. You just never know. And you have to just be adaptable. You ended up on a very nice high end street. Now, half of the people say, I can't be that visible. My patients are private. And the other half say, that's a perfect place for me to be, next to Starbucks and the Pilates. So, did you know it was going to go well? Were you guessing at it? And has there been any? Do you have any feelings about that being too visible?
So, I think especially early on in practice, I think that it was a great decision. I think from a building a practice, as you're a younger surgeon, like, you kind of grow with your patients too, and being more established now. And I think this goes into looking towards the future. I think I will ultimately build and own my own space, and that's kind of the five more like the 5 to 10 year plan. Um, we can talk about that later, but I do think in down the road, I see the pull for a place with a little more privacy. That being said, I think being where I have been right now, we do have a privacy entrance, and we do take care of those patients. We have that built into kind of our system here too. But I think in the beginning, it has been wonderful in terms of just the marketing, being in this neighborhood. My building is beautiful. The office is beautiful. And so that visibility has been really helpful to growing, I think, quicker than I would, or at least having the benefits of the location early on in practice.
Yeah. Can I ask square footage?
1,500 square feet, so pretty tight.
Okay. But you're brand new. You're fine, and you're getting that visibility.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it was perfect for the first year and a half, and then you're kind of like, oh wow, my office is really tight. We're a little cubby, and I love another office for more staff members. But I always think back to some of my experiences interviewing at different places in New York City, in those little boutique, tiny little offices, and I'm like, they can do it, then I can do it, and that's true. It just takes a little bit of planning, and the patient facing areas are all beautiful, open, do not feel tight. It's just the little tiny offices. You're like, maybe in the future, I'd love a little bit more space.
so true. When I go to Houston, it's big, big, big. And I
Mhm.
go to New York and it's tiny, tiny, tiny. And
Mhm.
it all works. It's all what you get used to, and your patients know the areas. They know that. So it's I have no. You just have to be adaptable and know your area. you know?
And truthfully, this practice design does fit in, really well with the boutique magazine street vibe. There's all these little boutiques up and down the street, and so it definitely kind of fits right in.
So tell me about staffing because it sounds like you can't really grow too much, so who's on board?
So I've been a strong believer in growing organically with my practice. So I started out with just one employee, and then added another one, then another one. I have four. I have an office manager now. That's kind of a newer addition. I did that myself for 3 years, and then added an office manager recently, who also works as a patient care coordinator because she has a special kind of skill set in that. Medical assistant, full time esthetician who also sometimes doubles as a medical assistant, and then my front office director of first impressions.
Oh, is that the phone person?
Yes, yes,
The
yes.
receptionist? Yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah.
How's that going? Most people have had a challenge with staffing. Any issues there?
Oh, yes. We have, a lot. I think we have a great team right now, thankfully. But we definitely, I think for a while there, the front office position was really hard. Went through about 3 or 4 people within a 6 month time period. And it's just amazing what humanity is amazing to me. I've learned so much. I remember the first person I fired, I was so distraught and just emotionally, it was so upsetting. And now I'm just like, it's just not working out. It's just, um, but but yeah, staffing, it's been a journey, and I think I've learned so much. I think about the things that are what's important and what's not important, and being assertive, and then that it's not really about that person, but it's about your practice. And at the end of the day, if you're even thinking those thoughts, that person should have already been gone. So yeah, learned a lot along that that line. I could talk about that for hours.
Hello there. Quick pause to ask you if you have gaps in your practice draining your time, profits, and peace of mind. If so, I can help you streamline, grow, and take the guesswork out of your practice. Book your practice growth strategy review at catherinemaley.com, and let's turn those gaps into growth. Now, back to the podcast. I really have tried to take the emotion out of it because it's so darn emotional, we human beings. And I just talk about that position. So this position needs this type of personality and they need to do these tasks. So are you up for that? Because if you're not, or you don't have these characteristics, then we just don't have a good fit. And stop fiddling around with it. And
Yeah,
we let people stay forever and they become
yeah,
so toxic. And then you're getting, you're waking up at 2 in the morning and it's like, no, I don't want to do this. That's the beauty of having a private practice. You don't have to do that if you don't want, but then you
right.
have to have the kahunas to take care of problems when they
Yes,
come
you
up.
do. You do. And they get bigger and bigger every year, so
So, where does non-surgical fit in? Because you're a facial plastic surgeon who probably wants to do surgery. Where does the non-surgical fit in?
I do have a very loyal injectable population, and I enjoy that. I think obviously really early on, it definitely helped just get people in my doors. I think I have converted a lot of patients from that. So it's not an aspect of my practice that I plan to give up anytime soon. I think it's probably 30% of my practice right now, I'd say. So a pretty decent size. And then the rest is surgical, and I kind of like it that way right now. And I think in the future, as everything, yeah, I'm not going to commit to that forever, but at least for right now, it's working out really well. And I think we have a unique brand. I'm a very natural aesthetic. I like things to, a lot of people come and cut their doses nearly in half from where they come from, and so I think that we have a really loyal patient population who then grow into lifelong patients. So.
Right. And then where does the second location fit into your plan?
So this summer, I launched a second location on the North Shore, which is about 40 minutes from downtown New Orleans. It's one of the fastest growing areas in our state. A lot of upper class, middle class people out there, and I had a growing patient population already, and kind of wanted to capture more of that patient population. I think both to meet the need of those patients out there, as well as there's nobody like me over there. There are really no facial plastic surgeons out there consistently. So I felt like it was a great opportunity just to kind of expand into that market, and the opportunity presented itself to lease space from another general plastic surgeon who was not using her office very much. And so I'm leasing space there from her a few days a month.
So then how do you work that out? How many days are you there? And are you using kind of as a feeder to surgery and have them come back to Louisiana for surgery?
So it's all in Louisiana, but it's but yes, I so right now I'm there 2 days, clinic days a month, so not a ton. I love them because those are my quiet, a little bit of a quieter day right now as it's building. But so I've done, and I'm also gotten credentialed over there. So the goal being to really bring those services to that population there, because there's a certain percentage that really don't like to drive into New Orleans. So I'm doing surgeries out there, but that is also funneling into my practice here for services that they can't get out there. And then I've been able to do sort of joint cases with some other surgeons out there as well. So that's been kind of like a nice added benefit to my practice. It's been great.
Yeah, I struggle with that sometimes as a consultant because I think, gosh, if you're new, focus is everything. So half of me says, no, just focus on one thing right now. Just grow this
Mhm.
one thing, and because some of the surgeons they can't help themselves, they just have to grow and take on new satellite offices. But then they've got to manage it somehow, and they lose track of the control of it. And
So that's the beauty of this. I have no new employees. It is all my system here, and we just kind of satellite ourselves in there. So the only thing that is different there is just is marketing into that area. But otherwise, it's literally there's an office set up, and everything is centralized still within my own office.
so it was a good move for you.
So far, yes, it's been good so far.
What would you say has been the biggest challenge of running your own private practice that others might not be aware of? Because it sounds really romantic to do your own thing, but what's been a big challenge?
Um, I think obviously we've already talked a little bit about the staffing side of thing. I think when that's I think universally difficult for the surgeon personality, and we get little to no training in managing people and being a good leader and communicating your vision to other people. So that has definitely been a challenge. And then I think also defining your vision, I think has been, I think when you go out, you kind of have this elusive image of what you want, but then reality happens and the practicality aspect of everything happens. And how do you maintain what your specific vision is for your practice in the middle of all of that? So I think those are kind of big lessons for me. And is this going to fit in with my brand? Is this, our part of our commitment to integrity? Is this, going to grow our practice? Or if it's not, then we're not doing it. Um, Being able to get to the place where you can really kind of streamline and define your vision. I think took me a minute to kind of figure that out. I think after opening my practice and kind of learning the reality of things. Um, so
Did you come up with a value statement or a mission statement?
not really a statement, but we definitely have, the things that I think set us apart. Like I said, a kind of a real commitment to integrity and creating a really boutique experience for patients, meaning it's a smaller scale environment. So they feel very concierge care from beginning to end. We've kind of like really tailored it to just I think feel kind of unique in the grand setting of like a surgical experience.
What's the competitive arena like in those two areas you've chosen?
Um, You mean from my competition? So
Uh-huh.
I think so. New Orleans is one of the most heavily saturated cities in the
Really?
country for plastics.
Yeah.
And I think most of it is general plastics here in the city. But there are quite a few facial plastic surgeons as well. I think I've carved out a little bit of a niche for myself, and that there are not many women in plastics here, and even less so in facial plastics. There's no other full time female facial plastic surgeon in cosmetics. There's another one who does kind of both reconstructive and cosmetics. So I think, so in general, I think that that's kind of been a nice niche from a competitive standpoint for me. But it is a highly competitive area here. North Shore, like I said, less so. Less so.
So one of your differentiators is being a female facial plastic surgeon. That's pretty specific.
Yeah.
You also show your prices online, and
Mhm.
I thought that was really interesting. So how's that been going?
I think I again with that big focus on integrity, I really wanted twofold. For patients to feel that they can trust me, and that we're not price gouging or changing our prices for whoever comes in the door. And second, to kind of also get higher quality patients through the door. So hopefully they've done their research, they know what it's going to cost. Cost doesn't become an issue when they come, see me here. So that it's been good. I've not really kind of I wouldn't say it's been one way or the other in terms of feedback yet. But I mean, so far, I think patients have really appreciated the integrity side of that.
My only caveat as a marketer is I love the transparency of pricing. I think it's silly to have somebody come in who doesn't have $10,000. Why not have that discussion way
Right.
earlier than spending your time on that and then finding that out later? But I do like to put a gate around that. I like to get their name, email, and cell first, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
because then I'm getting something and you're getting something, and it gives you a chance of explaining why your prices are that way. Half of me says, gosh, if we start that discussion about price right now, then we're talking about price instead of how great you are. And then
Yeah.
so the other half of me is like, no, no, no. First get your branding right. Then we'll talk about price a little later. But frankly, you can do both. You've got your branding very clear on your website and the
Yeah.
pricing. I think it's a great way to collect and grow your database because, quite frankly, it's going to get more and more difficult to be found online, specifically to your
Mhm.
website. So, anybody who raises their hand and says they're interested in looking good, I would definitely get to know their name, email, and cell. You know,
I
Just-
hear
yeah.
you.
Yeah. So, what about online scheduling? You're also offering that. So, I love the boutique feel of this, and I love the convenience of it. I love the boutique thing. I don't love like a big operation that's,
Yeah. Yeah.
so has that been going well?
Yeah. No, I think it's kind of essential. I actually think for practices these days. If we're not doing that, I think you're just missing out a lot. Because I think about the way that I work, and I'm really busy, and I don't want to get on the phone and call someone to make my appointment. I want to sit there and look at my calendar online, and because we're busy and professional and all of that. So I really wanted to be able to offer that to patients. So it's not, I don't offer every time slot, via self scheduling, but I definitely reserve that as an option for patients. So, which I think is a really great addition.
What about your online store? How is that going?
Oh, I think, it's not, we kind of market that more for our patients, but it's definitely a nice, again, an added convenience. You think about what people want. You want your Amazon purchase to show up at your door in 2 days, or, the convenience of being able to just place an order and swing by and somebody walks it out to you. And so that was kind of the thought of creating that convenience for our patients, to where you take away all of the barriers to getting the products that they want, and that have been recommended to them, by our office. So. Yeah, it's been great.
I like the online store idea, but then are you stuck with the fulfillment?
Oh, yeah, yes, but it's, the way that it's set up, that patients cover that cost, so it doesn't
Yeah.
cost us anything to do that. We just package it in office. We have an account with the USPS, so.
Yeah, but you have to package it. I mean, some people, you wish it was a problem, because typically it's not easy to run an online store. It's actually easy to run it. It's not easy to keep it going, because
Mhm,
it's just
right.
super duper competitive. But you also have an app.
Yeah.
So is that, you're doing all the right things, but some of this stuff's time consuming, so there's some
It
customers.
has, and, I think I look at the different years and kind of what's happened within that year, and I look at, the initial growing pains of that first year, and then years like 1 to 2, and then years 2 to 3, and I think, this last year, for instance, has been a lot of, like, getting those systems and building those systems in place, and I think, we've definitely seen the fruit of those systems now, as we continue to grow and grow and grow. And it's so nice to already have done all of that grunt work when, things were a little bit not quite as busy as they are, every year subsequent, So I think it does. It's a lot of work to create systems like that. But once they're in place, they only kind of launch you further, I think.
Well, and the secret is don't give up on it. It takes a minute for this to grow
Yes.
legs. So, and everyone's so ADD now, they give up before it's even had a chance. So, good.
Mhm.
Hang on to all of that because it can work out just fine. But you need some patience.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Both, both patients and patients. Yeah.
Yes, you do.
so, so regarding marketing, The one challenge you have is you're very young, and so you want the facelifts and the rhinos, and it's two very different markets. So how did you enter the marketplace so people know who you are? Not just people, the right people, the aging face people, and the younger rhino patients. How did you work all that out?
Oh, it's been so different at different times. Right when I launched my practice, I did Google Ads. I didn't walk into the launch with like a, 15,000 following on Instagram, type of thing. And so I did do Google Ads for I think it was several different categories of surgeries that I wanted to capture. I did that probably for the first year, maybe, some degree of Google Ads, and then kind of shifted away from that as SEO build to social media build. And then I really have transitioned completely away from any paid advertising. Now I'm doing it's all word of mouth and social media. And I just haven't had the need for that. I did launch one Google ad when I launched the North Shore office there, but otherwise I'm not doing any advertising. And it's been interesting to see the shift because initially I, of course, had a lot more of a rhinoplasty heavy patient population. They're younger, like you said. Now it's definitely shifted to completely even, and that's all word of mouth. So that's grown a ton for me locally, and I'd say it's probably 50-50 social media, Google, or website SEO, not paid Google ads, and then word of mouth through local other physicians, and then just patient to patient type of stuff.
That's fantastic. What about the social media? How much time are you putting into that? Did you outsource?
Not enough, not enough, Catherine. I need to be putting in way more.
Yeah,
Oh,
if you don't have enough to do, right?
yeah, yeah,
It really takes you, the surgeon is the
it does.
content, and then you have to be the content creator, and hopefully somebody helping you, like walking around with a videotape or iPad or cell phone or something.
No, the office staff has helped a lot. We do have two accounts. One is like my general office account, and then my personal one. And I manage the personal one. The office account they kind of have managed, and that's where we do more of the happenings of the office, and that sort of thing. But it's definitely an area of growth for me for sure. I see it as kind of it's like this opportunity that I need to find time to really just capitalize on. And I think I do a good job. I get compliments on it all the time, and the word does get out there. But I certainly could do a lot more in that capacity for sure.
Well, so many of the doctors spend their evenings interacting with their followers, and that's where a huge chunk of time goes. So it's not just putting out the content, but now it's you have to talk to these people, or somebody's got to interact with them. Do you find that to be challenging, or have you outsourced that?
No, I don't outsource it. I do all that. I don't necessarily do it after hours though. With my, I'm pretty religious about my family time and my personal time. At least until the kids go to sleep. So but yeah, I think I do all of that right now. I think it's a lot, but it's not. I wouldn't outsource it yet. So.
Any tips on getting the patient consents for before and after photos or referrals or reviews? Anything you're doing that's working?
I've definitely so we have, I think, like 70 something reviews on Google. And I think asking patients that when they're like, "Oh, I'm so happy," and then typically the staff or I will ask, are you comfortable with us either posting your pictures, or if you wouldn't mind leaving a review. I've used a system called Bird Eye. I don't know if you're familiar with that, and
Uh-huh.
that just kind of prompts like, please tell us about your experience after they leave. We've had some success with that. I'm not continuing with that. It's very expensive for kind of what it is, and I don't necessarily feel the need for it anymore. But that's sort of how I built the reviews, and then getting before and afters is kind of a person to person. At your follow up when they're happy and seem excited, just tell people about it. That's the type of person we ask. We certainly don't ask everybody, in terms of if they seem uncomfortable with sharing their pictures, and you want to be really private. Again, that privacy thing is so important in the facial plastics world. So,
So I normally wrap it up by saying, tell us something we don't know about you. So you have to talk about your home life.
Yeah, so I say I'm a twin mom. So I birthed my practice and then birthed twins 3 months later.
Unbelievable.
So that's been, a huge thing in our life. And I think, um, a lot of people ask me, "Oh, is it crazy difficult? Was it horrible?" I'm like, there's actually really never a better time to do it than right when you're starting out. Things are you have built-in flexibility. I was able to, breastfeed my kids and do all these things that I probably never would have been able to do if I was not owning my practice. And I feel really lucky in that way. But it's pretty funny to talk to some of those patients initially who are some of my first patients, and they're like, yeah, all one time you came in and there you were, and then the next there's these little ones. So it was quite a journey for sure. Um,
How old are they now?
they're 3 this month, so
God, how cute.
yeah, it's
Is it helpful? Like, will they play together so you don't have to be so involved?
now they do, yes. But I also tell people, I'm like, yeah, that seems really great, but also they cry at the same time and need you at the same time. So it goes both ways on that one. But no, they're hilarious and a lot of fun. And any advice I would tell other people, especially women, in a surgical career and having little ones is, I think there's always time for other things, and that time with them is fleeting. So um, you know, holding the time sacred when you're with them is just so important, and picking a schedule and lifestyle that you can do that. And I think owning a practice really, if you do it right, can be a great way to be able to be the best mom, and also be an incredible practice owner. So
Nice. Well, congratulations. What is your website?
audubonfacialplastics.com.
Okay. What's Audubon? What is the meaning of that?
So it's a famous park in New Orleans. It's 4 blocks from us, Audubon Park, named after, I think, James Audubon, the bird painter. So yeah,
Okay, good to know.
yeah,
Well, thank you so much. I'll be watching your career as it grows, and we'll be seeing you around, I'm sure, at the meetings. I just saw you at a meeting recently, as a matter of fact.
yeah.
Is there another way they want to get a hold of you? Maybe your Instagram?
I think Instagram would probably be the easiest, and it's at Dr. Claire Melancon, Melancon.
Do
So
you believe that's how you say Melisson? That doesn't make any sense to me. Right.
blame the French, blame the French. So
I love the French. I just can't pronounce anything. So thank you so much, everybody. That's going to wrap it up for us today. If you would please leave me a review at Beauty and the Biz, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any further episodes. And then if you've got any questions or you want a growth strategy review with me, you can leave that on my website at catherinemaley.com, or you can always DM me on Instagram at catherinemaley.mba. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon.
The fastest way to success is to model other successful surgeons who have what you want, but you can only see their results, not the path they took to get there. So you continue to jump from one thing to another, hoping to find something that will work for you too. But it rarely does. So try this shortcut instead. It's guaranteed to move you forward. I compiled my intellectual property to grow cosmetic revenues, everything I've gleaned over the years, into one playbook of the most successful practices and what they do to win. Go to cosmeticpracticevault.com and let's grow your cosmetic revenues.